It was exactly 8 o'clock in the morning when the gates of the city's most prestigious and expensive school, Westbridge International Academy, opened for the day. This was the kind of school where only the children of millionaires and powerful families could study. The yearly tuition alone was more money than a poor man could earn in an entire lifetime of hard work. Outside the gates, a long line of luxury cars stretched across the road. Students stepped out wearing designer uniforms, polished shoes, and expensive watches, looking more like celebrities arriving at a fashion event than teenagers coming to school. But standing quietly beside the tall wall near the gate was a 14-year-old boy named Ethan Carter. Among all the elegance and wealth, Ethan looked painfully out of place. He wore a torn and dirty shirt with broken buttons hanging loose from the front. His hair was messy, his face covered in dust and sweat, and over his shoulder hung a heavy plastic sack filled with old newspapers, crushed bottles, and scraps he had collected since sunrise. The school security guards waved sticks at him, trying to scare him away. Students wrinkled their noses in disgust whenever they walked past him. But Ethan noticed none of it. His bright eyes were fixed on only one thing: the large classroom window on the ground floor. Inside that classroom, the senior mathematics lecture had just begun. The room was completely silent. Mrs. Catherine Brooks, the city's most feared and respected mathematics teacher, stood at the blackboard. People often joked that she had swallowed mathematics itself. No student dared whisper or even look away during her class. Final board exams were approaching and tension filled the air. Mrs. Brooks picked up a piece of chalk and wrote an extremely difficult. Then she spoke in a cold and serious voice. "Everyone pay attention. This is one of the hardest applications of the mean value theorem. For the past 15 years, this problem has appeared in board exams, and almost 99% of students solve it incorrectly. Even university professors struggle with it. So don't try to be clever. Memorize exactly what I write. One small mistake, and you lose all your marks." The entire class sat frozen in fear. Mrs. Brooks began solving the equation. Step 1, Step 2, Step 3. Outside the window, Ethan tightly gripped the iron bars and stared at the board without blinking. The numbers and symbols moved through his mind like music. For a moment, he forgot he was a trash collector. It felt as though he belonged inside that classroom. But then Mrs. Brooks wrote the fourth line and placed a minus sign before closing the bracket. Without realizing it, Ethan whispered softly, "Wrong. That's wrong." His voice was barely audible, but the student sitting nearest to the window heard him. His name was Ryan Mitchell, the richest, most arrogant troublemaker in school. He rarely paid attention during class and had already been staring outside in boredom. The moment he noticed Ethan, a cool smile spread across his face. He suddenly shouted, "Oh my God! Mrs. Brooks, look who's outside! That filthy trash kid has been spying on us this whole time. The smell is unbearable. Seriously, someone get him away from here." The classroom exploded with laughter. Mrs. Brooks stopped writing immediately. Anger flashed across her face because she hated interruptions more than anything else. She stormed toward the window and shouted at Ethan, "You! How dare you stand here? This is Westbridge International Academy, not a train station. Get out immediately. If I see you here again, I'll call the police." Ethan's body trembled with fear. That familiar fear of being poor. The fear of being treated like dirt. He slowly lifted his heavy sack and began walking away. But his love for mathematics defeated his fear. He stopped,
Then he turned around and spoke in a shaking but clear voice. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I was only watching. I don't want anything. But the fourth line is incorrect. The formula in the textbook was printed wrong. If you continue that way, the answer can never equal 0. The entire classroom fell silent. A ragged trash collector had just corrected the city's greatest math teacher. Mrs. Brooks turned pale with humiliation. In 20 years of teaching, no one had ever challenged her like this. Furious, she marched outside, grabbed Ethan by the collar, and dragged him into the classroom. Ethan begged her not to damage his sack, but she ignored him completely. She shoved him toward the blackboard. His dirty feet left muddy footprints across the spotless white tiles. Students stared at him as though an animal had wandered into the room. Some even covered their noses with handkerchiefs. Mrs. Brooks glared directly into his eyes. "You uneducated little fool," she snapped. "You think you can teach me mathematics? Do you even know who I am? I'm a gold medalist. I've been teaching advanced mathematics for 20 years. This problem has been published by international authors for 15 years. And you, a boy who searches through garbage for food, are telling me it's wrong? What qualifications do you have?" As dark clouds blanketed the entire sky, the afternoon suddenly turned eerie and still. As the light faded, a strange, heavy darkness filled the house, like an omen of something terrible. On the drawing room floor, Evelyn was on her knees, weeping bitterly. With tearful eyes and a wet face, she clung to her father's feet and begged, "Dad, please, stop this marriage. I can never accept him. Don't force me like this." Despite his daughter's tears, Arthur Carter stood firm as a stone. Though age had grayed his hair, his eyes held an unyielding resolve. His daughter's pain shook his heart, but today he couldn't afford to be weak. In a grave voice, he declared, "You must marry him, Evelyn. This is not just my wish. It is the duty to repay a massive debt of my life." From the back of the room, Ryan laughed. "Come on, ma'am. He probably can't even solve basic addition. Let him try. This should be entertaining." Mrs. Brooks grabbed a piece of chalk and threw it at Ethan. "Fine, solve it. But if you were wrong, I'll make sure you regret stepping into this school, and I'll burn that disgusting bag of yours too. Now solve it." Ethan could barely breathe. His heart pounded violently in his chest. Every eye in the room burned with disgust and mockery. Slowly, he bent down and picked up the chalk with trembling fingers. The moment he touched it, memories of his mother flooded his mind. His mother, Sophia Carter, used to wash dishes in rich people's homes during the day. But every night, under the dim glow of a candle, she taught Ethan mathematics. Her voice echoed in his head. "Ethan, the world judges people by their clothes, but God judges their intentions. Mathematics never lies. It doesn't belong to rich people. The day you know you are right, never be afraid of anyone." The fear vanished from Ethan's eyes. At that moment, he was no longer a homeless trash collector. He became a mathematician. Without hesitation, he erased half of Mrs. Brooks' solution. The classroom erupted into whispers. Then Ethan began writing. The sharp sound of chalk echoed through the room. In the very first line, he completely changed the foundation of the equation. Mrs. Brooks frowned deeply as she watched. Ethan's hand moved faster than anyone could follow. He identified the exact 15-year-old mistake hidden in the textbook, the incorrect limit value that had misled thousands of students for years. 2 minutes later, He drew a large box around the final answer and stepped back silently. Then he placed the chalk on the table, lowered his head, and stood quietly beside his sack. Mrs. Brooks froze like a statue. Sweat rolled down her forehead as she grabbed several reference books and checked the problem again and again. Then she looked back at the board. Ethan was absolutely correct. A mistake the entire country had been studying for 15 years had just been solved by a homeless boy in less than 2 minutes.
The laughter in the classroom disappeared. Only silence remained. Mrs. Brooks spoke in a broken whisper.
My God, how did you do this? This is master's level reasoning. Why aren't you in school? Ethan wiped his eyes. How could I come to school, ma'am? Schools require tuition, uniforms, shoes. All I have is this sack. My mother taught me before she died 2 years ago. She dreamed of becoming a mathematics teacher, but poverty destroyed her life.
Before she passed away, she held my hand and said, "I may never give you money, Ethan, but I can give you knowledge. Don't ever let it die." I collect trash outside classrooms and listen to teachers through windows. Today, when you wrote the wrong step, I felt like if I stayed silent, my mother's dream would die too. People can be poor, ma'am, but mathematics should never be wrong. Several students burst into tears. Mrs. Brooks felt as though someone had shattered her pride with a hammer. Slowly, in front of the entire class, she knelt before the dusty boy and held his hands tightly. "My son," she whispered emotionally, "I have taught thousands of students, but today, you taught me." At that exact moment, a loud voice thundered from the classroom doorway. "Mrs. Brooks, what on earth is going on here?" Standing there was the owner and principal of the school, Mr. Richard Harrison. The moment he saw Ethan inside the classroom, fury exploded across his face. Covering his nose with a handkerchief, he shouted, "What is this sewer rat doing inside my school? This academy has standards. If parents see their children standing beside a beggar, our reputation will be destroyed. Security, throw him out immediately and make sure he never comes back." Terrified, Ethan clutched his sack and stepped backward. But before the guards could move, Mrs. Brooks stood in front of him like a lioness. Mr. Harrison stared at her in disbelief. "Catherine, have you lost your mind? You're defending a trash collector against me?" Mrs. Brooks looked directly into his eyes. "Watch your words, sir. That boy is not trash. He is a diamond. What he accomplished today, none of us could do. If this school cannot respect talent, then this is not a temple of education. It is nothing more than a business." The room fell completely silent. Then she continued firmly, "I resign. Right now. If he leaves this school, I leave too. I would rather teach under a tree than allow this child's genius to die." The entire building seemed to shake. At that moment, the school's elderly janitor, Mr. Daniel Reed, came running into the room holding an old envelope. "Wait!" he shouted breathlessly. "Don't throw him out. I knew his mother, Sophia Carter. She wasn't an ordinary woman." He handed Mrs. Brooks an old university certificate. Written across it were the words, "Sophia Carter, gold medalist in mathematics, State University." Mrs. Brooks gasped in shock. She had studied from books written by Sophia Carter during her college years. Inside the envelope was a letter. It read, "By the time someone reads this, I may already be gone. Poverty forced me onto the streets, but my son Ethan carries all my knowledge and all my life's work inside him. Please don't look at him as a beggar. Just give him a chance to study."
Mrs. Brooks broke down crying. Ethan collapsed into tears hearing his mother's name spoken with respect for the first time in years. But the biggest change appeared in Ryan. The arrogant rich boy slowly removed his expensive school blazer and gently placed it around Ethan's shoulders. Then he lowered his head and said softly, "Please forgive me, brother. You're the truly rich one. The rest of us are only rich in money." Even Mr. Harrison lowered his head in shame. Mrs. Brooks stood before the class and announced, "From today onward, Ethan will never collect trash again. He is my student, my responsibility. I will personally pay for all his education." That day, a new piece of history was written on the school blackboard. The 15-year-old wrong solution was erased forever. And beneath it, someone wrote, "Correct solution. Ethan Carter, grade 12. That day, Ethan proved something the entire world needed to remember. Genius does not belong only to palaces. Even a poor child can touch the sky.